We're talking about real estate, and specifically we're talking about, I'm going to give you an example of, this is kind of a classic type of home when I talk about an investment property for white collar professionals, especially chiropractors. This is a classic example I'm about to give you right now. And so this property is for sale, and it wasn't hard to find because the title of the property said highly motivated seller. So it didn't say motivated seller, it said highly motivated seller. So anytime anybody has that in the title, that's worth a phone call. So I call and I walk them through the scripts, and basically here's the scenario is they were asking $136,000, $136,000. So after I walked them through the script, I was able to decrease what they were asking $16,000 on the first phone call using the first phone call script that we teach. So on the very first phone call, I got $16,000 off the property. Now let me share with you some really core basic components of it and share with you why this has very high potential, and it is a classic real estate investment from what we talk about with subject to investing. And here's some of the basics. It's in a good neighborhood. The location's fine. It's a good home, structural home, 3-2 and all that. Let me go into the money more so. All the components with the structure and no repairs and the location, all of that's fine. It's good and no problems. It's a high demand piece of real estate. It's a 3-2 and it's 1,800 square feet on a big lot. So it's actually larger than most 3-2 homes. But here's what I wanted to go over to you from an investment standpoint is the lady had a $90,000 note on the property, $90,000 note. After taxes and insurance, she paid $750. Her mortgage, including taxes and insurance, was $750. Now the going rent in that area is $950. The rent for that area is $950. Now, she has a fixed interest rate loan, and I think it was at 4.5%. I think it was like that. I'd have to double check, but that was not a bad loan. It wasn't variable rate. It wasn't high. It wasn't about to change anytime soon. It was a nice, solid, fixed rate. And it was a 30-year note. Okay. Now, here's what makes it interesting. Here's when things get interesting. Is she definitely was a motivated seller. She was a teacher. It just so happens that this is June. We're recording this in June. And she's a teacher, and she's on the west coast of Florida. And she needs to get to the east coast of Florida in 6 weeks by the 1st of August to settle in for her new teaching position. But that wasn't the motivating factor as much. That was an important motivating factor. The motivating factor is her boyfriend was on the East Coast. So she had met somebody and needed to get to the East Coast to move in with her boyfriend. And that was also a major clue also. She was going to move in with her boyfriend, not go and buy another house. That was another major clue. So she needed to get over to the other side of the state, be with her boyfriend, and she had a deadline for her job, and she didn't need the money to go buy another house. So she had a deadline approaching her. And so basically it's 6 weeks. It's 6 weeks to the 1st of August to sell her house. And that's that. I mean, her job starts, and emotionally she wants to get over to her boyfriend, and she'd much rather get over there next week than in 6 weeks. So we definitely have a motivated seller here. So and so the price differential that I got her on the first phone call, in other words, what was the carry away money? How much money did she need in her pocket after the house sold and paid off the mortgage? And that dollar amount that she said was $20,000. Well, she was asking $136 in her ad, and when I first picked up the phone to call her. But after I took her through all the scenarios, it turns out she would sell it for $20,000 cash tomorrow. She would take a check tomorrow for $20,000 and walk. So that's $110,000. Now, that's $110,000. So just briefly, let's say that the property is $110,000. Let's just make that assumption that the value of the property is $110,000. And then the interest and principal was 720, and the rent for rentals for that area was 950 a month. So is this a good deal or not? Well, here's why I tell you these are very classic great deals. And here's why is, number one is, if I got her down to $20,000 on the first phone call, chances are it's going to go down further than that on the second contact and the third. Because when I actually go to the house, and if it's something that I want, I'll do what's called a cost to sell discount. So I'll start at her number. I'll get the appraisal value for that area, and I'll find out what the value of that house is. And it'll be third party based, so it's not my opinion and it's not hers, because that's what the appraisals will go on, and she knows that. So it will be a trusted number. And then from her number or that number, whichever one is lower, that's the number I start with. And then I will do what's called a cost to sell discount. I cover that in a separate video because that's a lot more technical and information based. But basically, it just shows of all the discount, of all the payments that she's going to have to pay when she sells that house. And I told you on average, it's about 12%. In other words, when somebody sells a house, they lose about 12% of what they'll sell the house for. They'll never get a check back for what they sold the house for. Those are called the cost to sell discounts, realtor fees. There's so many other additional fees people aren't even aware of. So if I'm at 110 and I go down 12%, even if I say 10% at 110, that's $11,000, and I'm up at 110. And so I easily can show her that it's going to cost another $11,000 if she goes the normal route instead of buying it from me my way, and if she goes the normal route. So I'm now at $109,000. So $109,000 to buy the house. There's a $90,000 note on it. So immediately I'm going to have from 109, let's say the property's worth, immediately I'll get a 10%. I'll get a 10% equity position immediately. Immediately it will cash flow $200. Immediately I will have a tax deduction. Remember, you take the cost of the house over 27 and a half years and you get 100% of that tax deduction. So if it was $4,000, let's say $4,000, I'm just rounding the numbers. If it was $4,000 a year and you were in a 50% tax bracket with 50% overhead, that would be $16,000 of real taxable money, real earned or gross income. $16,000 in gross income you would not be paying taxes on because of the depreciation. Plus you'd have a $10,000 equity position. So right there, you're at $26,000 in equity position right off the bat, just from this one maneuver. And let's say that you needed that amount of capital to make the deal work. So the difference between 90 and 109 is what, 19,000, or 109 is 109, $19,000. So, and actually it's not 109, it's 99. So it would be $9,000. So if you had a check for $9,000, you could hand her that check for $9,000 because you would have started at what the house was worth or what she positioned. You'd have subtracted the cost to sell discounts. You wouldn't even have used all of them. You would not even have had to use all of them. I would not even have necessarily cared to get a cost to sell discount. I would have even given her full price because I'm going to get $110,000 stock. And how much is that $110,000 stock going to cost me in cash? $9,000. That's the power of real estate. And I will just turn that piece of property right over to my property investor. And within 30 days, that property will be cash flowing. And it happened just like that because I had the knowledge of how to put it all together. So why is this so valuable for a white collar professional? Well, usually a white collar professional can come up with $9,000 every 2, 3, 4 months, 5 months, even 6 months, worst case scenario. So you could easily buy 2 homes a year in this type of scenario. Well, 2 homes a year at $110,000 is over $200,000 a year. So it doesn't take real long, definitely within a short time period, you have enough property. And you got to remember what's your fixed income versus your passive income. Well, when that property's paid for at present time money, if you're at $950 and let's say your fixed expenses were $3,000, you just covered 1/3 of your fixed expenses. You are 1/3 of the way toward freedom. That's what just happened. Now, the next thing why also so valuable is we left the note in place. It's a subject to note. You do not have to get your financial statements, which are a real pain. You don't have to get your profit loss statements, your tax returns. You don't have a credit. You don't have to worry about credit issues. You don't have to worry about all the crap of going and getting a loan from a bank. And most of you would not even be able to get the loan because your ratios are out of balance. Maybe you got credit issues. Your debt to income ratio is not good. So there's all kinds of other issues that typically won't even allow the bank to give you a loan. And then the last one is, in today's day and time, you can only do that 4 times with investment property and purchase that home with less than 10% down, because right when you go past 4, now they jack it up and make you pay commercial down payments of 30% or more. And so that's why you want to totally stay away from the banks. Just another reason to totally stay away from the banks, because you will never be able to get wealthy applying for loans through banks to buy real estate, or it'll be very rare, or you'll start way later in life. So these are all the multiple reasons. And so this was like a absolute classic property to cut the check. And if she wouldn't do it for $9,000, I'd cut the check for $20,000, give her full price, not above full price. So whatever the price appraised for minus the difference, I'd cut her a check for that. Even if I didn't get a discount, I'd still cut her a check because of all the other valuable components that are inherently in this financial strategy. And immediately just turn it over to my property manager, and I'm off to work the next day. I mean, it's not even in my mind. It's all now, the basics are being cleaned up from my property manager, signs going outside the rent. He's taking care of all the phone calls. I don't do anything. And then I go and I do it all over again. I just repeat the process. So that's just a real quick point of how the power of what's called subject to investing, when you know how to not only evaluate it, market it, consult with it, negotiate it, and put values on it. And especially if you can come up with $10,000 or $20,000 every few months, 6 months, that's how fast you can start picking up pieces, $100,000, $150,000 pieces of real estate. And that's what's going to create your wealth.